My ex invited me to his wedding. I went. I sat in the front row. I smiled through the entire ceremony. What he didn't know was that I had already spoken to his bride 3 days before. My name is Claire Navarro, and I want to tell you about the Saturday afternoon I walked into a church, took the best seat in the house, and watched a man discover that the past he thought he had buried was sitting 12 feet away from him, dressed in navy blue, completely calm. Marcus and I were together for 4 years. We met at work, same company, different departments. He was charming in the way that certain men are charming. Not loudly, not obviously, but consistently. Always the right word at the right moment. Always attentive in ways that felt specific to you. I didn't understand for a long time that this was a skill he practiced on multiple people simultaneously. The relationship ended when I found messages on his phone. Not by snooping, but because he left it open on the kitchen counter and a notification came through with enough visible text to answer a question I hadn't known I was asking. The woman's name was Julia. The messages were 18 months old. They had overlapped almost entirely with the first 18 months of our relationship. I confronted him. He admitted it, said it was over, had been over for a long time, that it meant nothing. Said all the things people say when they've been caught and want to minimize the damage. I left anyway. Not out of rage, out of the cold, clear understanding that a man who had managed 18 months of parallel deception without a single visible crack was not someone I had actually known. I had known the performance. The man underneath it was a stranger. We didn't speak for 2 years. Then the invitation arrived. Marcus and Elaine, a date in September, a church I recognized, same neighborhood where we had lived together, a handwritten note inside. I hope you'll come. It would mean a lot. I read that note several times. I thought about what it meant that he had sent it, the confidence of it, the assumption that I had filed away what he had done, moved on, wished him well, that I was the kind of person who would sit in a church and watch him marry someone else and feel nothing complicated about it. I almost didn't go. Then I started thinking about Elaine. I knew nothing about her, but I knew something about Marcus. Specifically, I knew the version of him that existed before the performance started. The version that had run parallel tracks for 18 months without telling either woman the truth. The version that had looked me in the eye every day and been, in some fundamental way, someone else entirely. I didn't know if Elaine knew about me. I didn't know what he had told her about his past. I didn't know if she was walking into this with clear eyes or with the same carefully constructed view I had been given. I decided I needed to know. I found her through the usual channels: mutual connections, social media, the ordinary visibility of a life in the digital age. She was a graphic designer, warm presence online, funny in her captions, the kind of person who seemed genuinely, straightforwardly good. I sent her a message, short, direct, said I was Marcus's ex, that I had received a wedding invitation, and that there was something I thought she should know before the wedding. Said she could ignore the message entirely, and I would respect that, but that I wanted her to have the choice. She replied within an hour. We met for coffee 3 days before the wedding, a place neither of us had been to before, neutral ground, no history. She was smaller than her photos suggested, composed in the way of someone who had prepared carefully for a conversation she wasn't sure she wanted to have. I told her everything. Not with anger, I had none left, genuinely, just with facts, the timeline, the overlap, what I had found and when, what he had said when confronted. I showed her the screenshots I had kept, not because I had planned to use them, but because I am a careful person and I keep records of things that matter. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat quietly for a moment. Then she said, "How long did you say the overlap was?" 18 months, I said. She nodded slowly, something moving behind her eyes that I recognized. the specific recalibration of someone whose picture of a person is shifting beneath them in real time. She asked me a few questions, careful ones. She wasn't looking to be convinced. She was looking to verify. There's a difference, and I respected her for it. Before we left, she said, "I need a few days." I said, "Of course. The invitation stands either way. That's his, not mine." She looked at me steadily. "Why did you come to me? You could have just not gone." I thought about it. "Because I was you once," I said, "and nobody came to me." She didn't say anything to that. She just nodded once, and we went our separate ways. The wedding was on a Saturday. I arrived early, found a seat in the front left pew, close enough to see everything, visible enough that Marcus would see me the moment he walked in. I wore navy blue, nothing dramatic. I brought a small clutch and a program I picked up at the door, and I sat with my hands in my lap and waited. Marcus came in from the side entrance with his groomsmen. He was scanning the room the way people do before a ceremony, checking the crowd, acknowledging faces. His eyes found me almost immediately. I watched him process it. The sequence was fast but readable. Recognition, surprise, a flicker of something that wasn't quite alarm but was adjacent to it. Then the performance reasserting itself, a controlled smile, a small nod in my direction, the professional recovery of a man who had been managing impressions his entire adult life. I smiled back. The music started. Elaine came down the aisle on her father's arm. She was beautiful in the way of someone who has decided to be present for a moment, regardless of its complications. She walked steadily. Her bouquet was still. Her face was composed. She didn't look at me when she passed, but just before she reached the altar, for one brief moment, she looked directly at Marcus, and something passed between them that wasn't in the script. A question and an answer, exchanged in half a second, in a language only the two of them spoke. I saw him receive it. I saw him understand that she knew. The ceremony continued. They said their vows, they exchanged rings. The officiant said the words, and they repeated them back. And when it was done, Marcus kissed his bride, and the room applauded, and I clapped with everyone else, my hands steady, my face neutral. At the reception, I stayed for one drink. Long enough to be seen, not long enough to be a presence. Marcus found me near the bar during the cocktail hour. He came alone. His face had settled into something careful. "I didn't think you'd actually come," he said. "You invited me," I said. He studied me. "Did you talk to her?" "You should ask her that," I said. He was quiet for a moment. "Why did you come, Claire?" I looked at him, thought about the 4 years, the 18 months of overlap, the note in the invitation that had assumed I would show up smiling and uncomplicated. "Because you invited me," I said again. "And because I wanted you to know that the past doesn't stay where you put it just because you've moved on. It goes where it wants." He didn't have anything to say to that. I finished my drink, said goodbye to no one in particular, and walked out into the September afternoon. I don't know what happened between Marcus and Elaine after that day. I haven't heard from either of them. I made a decision not to follow up, not to monitor, not to be any further part of whatever they were building or dismantling. That wasn't my story to finish. I had only one thing to do in it, and I did it. What I know is this: Elaine walked into that marriage with the full picture. Whatever she decided to do with it, stay, leave, confront, forgive, build something new on honest ground, she made that choice with her eyes open. That was what I had wanted for her, what nobody had wanted for me. As for sitting in the front row, that was for me. Not for him, not for her. For the version of me that had been managed and handled and kept in the dark for 18 months,
and had left without making a sound because I didn't want to be the woman who made a scene. I didn't make a scene on Saturday either, but I was there. Video, composed, completely informed. And that, for me, was enough. Here's what I want to leave you with. Cold is not the same as empty. You can be precise without being cruel. You can act without performing. You can make sure the truth is in the room without throwing it at anyone. I didn't go to that wedding to destroy anything. I went because a woman I had never met deserved to know what I had learned the hard way. And because the man who had managed me so carefully for so long needed to understand, just once, what it felt like to be the one without information. To sit in a room and not know what had already happened. To smile and not be sure what the smile meant. To look at someone composed and quiet and wonder what they know. Now he does. That was the only thing I needed him to learn.